Boo! You should have seen me coming. It's the season after all. I have taken dominion over this channel and worked its former master like heck to finally churn out an actual video for your viewing torrent. Stay ghoulish, my minions.
Phew, now that the gimmick is over and done with, welcome to the annual Gidro's Hellish Halloween Scarefest Volume 5. The game which we will unearth from its grave is Blood, one of the 3 games in what I like to call the Build trilogy, named after Ken Silverman's Miracle of an Engine. Out of this trilogy, it was the last one released, reaching the shop shelves on May 31st, 1997. It was developed by Monolith Productions, nowadays known for their Shadow of Mordor and Shadow of War games, as well as the Fear series. It's published by GT Interactive Software, who have a little too many titles to list. Of course, much like the other Build games, it runs on the DOS OS, but it works just fine on Windows 95. And nowadays you can grab it from GOG.com and even Steam. Naturally they use the DOSBox emulator. God bless the thing and the team behind it. In the trilogy of these awesome games, Duke Nukem was based around the whole action hero trope. Shadow Warrior went with the tongue-in-cheek Eastern action hero type, but Blood opts for the Western horror/occult theme, and by gum does it work.
Fresh victims for the ever-growing army of the undead.
In Blood, you play as Caleb, an anti-hero who spews references and one-liners like there's no tomorrow, and much like the rest of the Build engine badasses, it's great stuff. This is a guy who sings Sinatra tunes before destroying a room full of cultists with a single stick of dynamite and some ghetto flamethrowers.
I've got you under my skin. Yeah.
You'll understand 5 seconds after you hit the new game button.
I live again.
Stephen White does a fantastic job here and definitely deserves all the praise for the role. As he has said in the past, all the singing ad-libs were not in the scripts, and I think you can hear the thespian touch for sure. And it fits with the zeitgeist of the 1930s and whatnot, which would be appropriate for the game's setting. And on the topic of the setting, the quick gist of the plot is that Caleb and his pals are some elite members of an evil cult by the name of the Cabal. The said elite did something, unspecified really, to make their master Chernobog real mad, and so Chernobog himself disavows them, and so they're snagged away by the bosses of the game, Caleb's lover included. The man himself gets the usual cold, hollow grave treatment, but rises sometime after and sets after Chernobog for the sake of revenge, episode after episode, plowing his way through the ranks of the Cabal, destroying the monsters responsible for the deaths of his comrades, and to eventually murder the Dark God himself. The episodes themselves consist of stages that are very much grounded in real environments. Mansions with hedge mazes, construction sites, cathedrals, sewers, moving trains and more. It makes the flow of the levels easier to navigate than the more abstract sorts of level design. Say for example the episode 2 of Duke Nukem 3D. That being said, it is still very much easy to get lost and lose track of the locked doors and their respective keys, as they're not marked in an obvious way, and this can get in the way of the ruthless action.
Yeah, single white female. You're going to need a bigger boat.
As for the facets of the action and gameplay, Blood is probably the most sophisticated in the Build engine department, featuring a nice cast of weapons, from shotguns to Tesla guns, and most of these come with alternative fire functions as well. Of course there's all the usable items as well, medkits, jumping boots and all that, and you're going to need to use pretty much everything you have to tackle the enemies in the game, because it's really freaking difficult. And then onto the more subjective side of things, which is to say, my thoughts on it. The game has a nice flow to it. The stages often start out simple in general, but they can turn into those key hunting fiestas a little too often for my liking. It's a little compounded by the fact that the keys are these abstract skulls, eyes, crescents and daggers instead of the old and safe color codes. It takes a while to get used to, but I feel like these key hunts and the tedious backtracking they might entail are really part and parcel of these types of games. That being said, I've never gotten truly stuck to a point where I had to use cheats to progress in that regard. The levels are not boring either. As I mentioned, they have a realistic flair to them, and there's always the haunting horror twist to it. The game isn't afraid of using monster closets and enemies behind corners to an almost sadistic degree. In fact, that's one of the chief causes of mild irritation in the game for me. The plain enemies, those being the cultists, are ruthlessly accurate and difficult to handle. While they might get stuck on terrain here and there, they're not too slow and they're actually capable of crawling as well, making them that much harder to hit, which is a nice touch. It doesn't really help that they're armed mostly with hit-scan, Tommy guns and shotguns. This means that even on normal difficulty, running into a room and not noticing an enemy in a split second can easily cost you half of your health. As for the adversaries, really, you know that for me, variety is one of the important things in this regard, and I feel like Blood has a nice balance of it. The said cultists come in a few variants, some wielding guns, others dynamite and so on. Even your run-of-the-mill enemies like the zombies can really take a beating. You think they're down for good, but nope, they might rise up and to try their luck again. And oh, here's a pro tip. If the zombie corpse sprite has a shadow underneath it, it means it's still alive, so watch out. As for the rest, there are gargoyles, ghosts and monsters in general, all with their little quirks, but I'll not get to the nitty-gritty of it. There's also this curious thing about the game's basic weapon balancing. Instead of the pistols and shotguns with plenty of ammo, which would be the norm in most games, you end up using a flare gun and dynamite for a good amount of time, saving those precious bullets and Tesla gun shells for the more tanky foes, and whipping out a voodoo doll for its incredible single target damage on the bigger enemies.
Just me.
So, is that really all I have to say about the game? According to the script, yeah, that's pretty much it, and I have been working on it for a while. I think that'll wrap up our Hellish Halloween Scarefest for now, for this year. I know it's not the greatest door to the spirit world that we've opened, but as you have seen, we're going through a bit of a tough slough here on the channel, so I apologize for that. I hope this meager offering of a video pleases the skeleton head, and you as well. We'll meet again, dear viewer. But for now, thanks much for watching. Lots of love. Stay spooked. And bye-bye.